Just a few weeks before Ozzy Osbourne, famously known as the Prince of Darkness, passed away, he and his family shared one final, deeply emotional conversation on live television. The moment was unforgettable not only because of Ozzy's haunting presence, but also due to the ominous signs that hinted at an approaching tragedy. Appearing on Piers Morgan, uncensored, Ozzy spoke candidly about the painful struggles he had endured over the years and the ongoing health battles he had kept private for so long. For the last time, he was able to share his thoughts publicly, just before his suffering reached its final, irreversible peak. One of the biggest misconceptions, as pointed out during the interview, is that many believed Ozzy's decline over the last 5 years was due to Parkinson's, but according to his family, the real catalyst was a devastating neck injury resulting from a fall he had suffered in 2019. In reality, the roots of his health issues went back even further. As the discussion unfolded, they touched upon a traumatic event from 2003, a horrific quad bike crash that marked the beginning of his physical deterioration. Ozzy remembered that accident clearly. Despite breaking part of his neck in the crash, he got up and continued working for years until the 2019 fall reopened old wounds and brought everything crashing down. Recalling the day of the ATV crash on their estate in England, Sharon shared how she had been in Los Angeles at the time, working, when she received the terrifying call that Ozzy was in an ambulance headed to the hospital. They had been filming the Osbournes' reality show when the incident occurred. Ozzy, riding his quad bike down an embankment, a routine path for him, lost control as the vehicle flipped into the air and landed directly on him. The next thing he remembered, he was in the hospital. Footage from the show even captured parts of the aftermath. After the crash, Ozzy had momentarily bounced up. A security guard rushed to him, lifted him onto the back of another bike, and drove him to the front of the house. Although emergency services had already dispatched a helicopter due to the estate's remote, forested location, the guards made the mistake of moving him. Medical professionals later revealed that moving someone after such a traumatic incident is one of the most dangerous things you can do. But Ozzy, in a state of shock, remembered none of it. At the time, doctors weren't sure how severe his injuries were. Then came the most harrowing update. A doctor informed Sharon that Ozzy's main artery in his arm had been severed. There was no blood flow, no oxygen. They were fighting to save the arm. Upon hearing that, Sharon was overwhelmed. She described being emotionally shocked. Within 2 hours, she boarded a flight to London. When she arrived, she found a devastated England waiting for updates. Police met her at the airport and rushed her to the hospital. Everyone was rallying around Ozzy. Doctors had placed him in an induced coma for 8 days to ease his suffering. When Sharon finally saw Ozzy in that hospital ward, he was surrounded by other patients in comas. Tubes and bottles were attached to him on all sides. One side had a bag filling with blood, the other with urine. It felt like a living nightmare. She hoped to wake up from it, but it was all too real. Ozzy then revealed something even more startling. He had known about his Parkinson's diagnosis since 2003. He had lived with it most of his life, but his particular form of the disease was rare. Unlike the Parkinson's people associate with Michael J. Fox, Ozzy's condition was called Parkinson, a genetic variant he had been born with. Of course, as Sharon joked, Ozzy couldn't just get any ordinary disease. His path with Parkinson's didn't follow the typical patterns seen in others. During the conversation, the family's raw dynamic was on full display. Sharon scolded someone for picking off nail polish. "Will you stop picking the nail polish off those bloody nails? Shut up. She's going to nag you to death." Even in such heavy moments, humor and love lingered. That the family explained that, although the condition had been dormant since birth, it had started progressing after Ozzy's fall. He had simply been heading to the bathroom when he fell. Ozzy vividly remembered the moment, thinking to himself, "You've done it now." He immediately called out to Sharon, telling her to find an ambulance because he believed he had broken his neck again. Sharon leaped from bed like lightning, running and screaming through the house, trying to get help. Through all this suffering, one constant remained: Sharon Osbourne. She stood by Ozzy's side without fail. The woman once known for glamorous world tours and life in the spotlight found herself living a secluded, quiet life devoted entirely to caring for her husband. Her transformation was profound. "My life was completely turned upside down," Sharon shared. "From someone always living in the spotlight, I suddenly became a wife and mother who had to take care of everything. But I never complained because I love Ozzy, and we've always been together. This wasn't merely a fight against illness, it was a race against time." Jack and Kelly Osbourne, Ozzy's children, couldn't help but share the overwhelming helplessness they felt as they watched their father battle through deteriorating health. Jack recalled how those painful months left him doing little else but sitting beside his dad, witnessing the toll illness took on him. "We lost the dad we once knew," he said, "and in his place was someone worn down, fragile." Kelly echoed that sense of loss but also pointed out that despite the powerlessness they all felt, the family stood strong, never abandoning each other. Kelly opened up emotionally, saying, "Oh, I was just really broken in every sense. Just every sleeve off every coat I own." She went on to recall a moment of frustration, telling Ozzy, "If you ever do this to me again, I'm going to cut your hair off or I'm going to cut all your clothes. Laughing through the pain, they pondered which would have been worse, hair or clothes. Reflecting on her choices, Kelly admitted, I wish I hadn't done the stupid thing that I did to get to want that area that happened. And that's the truth because you never know what you've got until you've lost it. And I thought I'd lost big time. Yet even in the midst of that chaos, Ozzy managed to release a powerful album. You got all these amazing people, on Elton John, Slash, and others, she said. You've been going through all this hell, and yet you produced this great album. Behind the scenes of that creative storm was Sharon, Ozzy's wife, and rocked through it all. During those grueling years, she completely reshaped her life to become his full-time caregiver. Once at the center of world tours and electric stage nights, her new reality became quietly domestic, revolving entirely around Ozzy's care. My life was completely turned upside down. Sharon shared, I went from being someone constantly in the spotlight to a wife and mother who had to take care of everything. But I never complained, because I love Ozzy, and we've always been together. The illness didn't just affect Ozzy's body, it shifted the rhythm of the entire household. Jack and Kelly saw their vibrant, energetic father replaced by a man drained by fatigue. Jack remembered those days when all he could do was be present, bearing witness to his father's suffering. We lost the father we once knew, he said, and what remained was someone exhausted and frail. Kelly reinforced the sentiment, acknowledging their powerlessness but highlighting how the family stayed united, their bond never breaking. Under pressure. When asked about Ozzy's health in recent times, there was relief in seeing him looking well. But the past still loomed. Ozzy had been through brutal back problems and Parkinson's, forcing him to step away from the stage and the touring life he adored. That absence hit hard not just for Ozzy, but for the entire family. As the matriarch, Sharon was asked how she managed those challenging years. So many people can relate, she said. When a partner is unwell, whether it's the husband or wife, your whole life changes. You're suddenly veering off into a completely new direction. Everything shifts drastically. She recalled how summers were particularly hard. Every summer, Ozzy worked festivals, tours, we were all over the world. And for the last 5 years, that life has completely changed. Yet there was a bright side. It's been great having Ozzy at home. He's been driving me crazy. But we've been together every single day for 5 years. Ozzy jumped in saying, I can't live without her. She can't live without me. Sometimes I love her, but I don't like her. Sharon laughed, adding, sometimes I say, I don't like you today, but I love you. Ozzy agreed. That's totally fine, perfectly achievable. Love is always there. That's what holds us together, he continued. In nearly 4 years together, I don't think a single day has passed where I didn't tell her I love her. I've spoken to her every day, no matter where I was, Evan, when I didn't want to, because I knew I was going to get an earful for being a bad boy. You blew the show again. When asked about the highlight of his life, Ozzy didn't hesitate. Meeting Sharon? And I'm not just saying that. But Sharon's responsibilities weren't limited to Ozzy's care. She also had to manage their public image while dealing with deep personal challenges. She revealed that after one final surgery, all Ozzy wanted was to return home and be surrounded by family. That quiet wish marked a turning point. This interview may have been Ozzy's final appearance in a public setting, his last spoken words. 2 fans before his health no longer allowed him to be on television. Despite everything, Ozzy maintained a spirit of optimism, though the weariness in his soul was visible as his body weakened. Sharon, Jack, and Kelly stayed by his side, unwavering. In their support, they helped him through the darkest, most painful moments with grace and devotion. Their final public appearance as a family was more than a simple reunion, was a symbolic goodbye. Though Ozzy didn't say it outright, the message was clear. It was the last time fans would see him engage with the world like that. The moment served as a sobering reminder of how time changes everything, and of the things in life that cannot be undone. The Osbourne family had always been a tight-knit unit, standing by one another through every hardship. Thanks to their unwavering support, Ozzy was able to pass away peacefully, knowing he had never been alone. Reflecting on her own painful journey, Sharon Osbourne revealed the devastating reality that my career, after 50 years, would end that way. She questioned what kind of legacy she would leave behind. I mean, what did I want my legacy to be? The shock and disbelief came from being fired over accusations of racism, a label she felt was deeply unjust. You and I both know, that's not how we live our lives, she said firmly. But in today's culture, once you're fired, you're thrown out by the cancel culture mob. Twitter explodes in celebration, full of joy and satisfaction. They believe they've successfully removed you, driven you out of your job, and ended your career, all because you dared to have an opinion. In the immediate aftermath, Sharon faced a barrage of hate that even she, someone not easily frightened, struggled to process. Listen, I don't scare easily, you know that. But some of the comments coming through on my social media were so horrific about cutting my throat, my husband's, even my dog's. They wanted to kill my dogs. The hate didn't stop there. It spread to Ozzy's platform, and then to her children. And then they started on Ozzy and my kids. I just thought, this is insanity. Desperate and afraid, she turned back to CBS and said, Not only can I not earn a living, but now I need 24-hour security because of you. Their response? Indifference. They go like, so what? She recalled. Their lives were under threat from menacing voices online, and it was impossible to know which ones were serious. Her career had crumbled overnight. She was labeled toxic, made untouchable, and cast out during a media-driven firestorm rooted in race. Sharon Osbourne, the strong, enduring wife of Ozzy Osbourne, became a symbol of sacrifice within her family. While the world watched her support Ozzy through his illness, few knew about the private battles she was fighting. For 5 years, as Ozzy's health deteriorated, Sharon bore not only the emotional toll of his weakening condition, but also the relentless pressures from public scrutiny and a hostile media. Although many viewed the Osbournes as a resilient and loving family, Sharon fought battles in silence, against Ozzy's illness and against a rising tide of personal and professional attacks. One of the most crushing moments in Sharon's life came in 2021 when she was fired from The Talk, a show she had loyally served for 11 years. The reason? She had spoken out in defense of Piers Morgan's right to freedom of speech. After he was slammed for expressing controversial opinions about Meghan Markle, although Sharon didn't entirely share his views, she supported his right to express them without being silenced or punished. Her tweet backing Piers amid the public uproar became a lightning rod for backlash. For that single act of support, she was harshly criticized and ultimately forced to leave the show. You get fired for defending freedom of speech, simply for offering a differing opinion. Sharon later said in an emotional interview, "It was the worst thing I could imagine. No one would ever think that a career of over 50 years would end this way." What made it even worse was how she was immediately branded as racist. "Just because I didn't condemn Piers Morgan," she explained, "the criticism wasn't just loud, it was ruthless and unrelenting." She faced fury not just from the public, but also from her industry peers. The experience left her completely isolated, transforming her from a respected figure to a woman rejected and shunned by the very world she had helped shape. The pain didn't stop at her professional downfall, it bled into her personal life. The backlash became dangerous. "Some people sent me horrific threats," Sharon shared. "They wanted to slit my throat, kill my children, even kill my dogs." The vitriol expanded, targeting Ozzy, her children, and her extended family. The threats were so persistent that Sharon and her loved ones had to live under the protection of private security. "My job was gone, and now I couldn't make a living," she said. "They made me untouchable." The emotional and psychological damage went far beyond the loss of income. It was the cruelty of a world that turned on her in an instant. Speaking about the toll it took, Sharon admitted, "For 3 months straight, I couldn't stop crying. It was a terribly difficult time in my life. I felt like I lost everything. My career, my reputation, and the respect of those around me." Her self-esteem plummeted, and her mental health suffered deeply. What kept her from falling apart entirely was the support of her family, especially Ozzy. In time, Sharon sought out ketamine therapy and psychological counseling in a desperate bid to heal her emotional wounds. Piers Morgan, no stranger to the Osbournes, played a complex role in the saga. A friend, a colleague, and someone who had stood beside them through countless professional milestones. Piers had witnessed firsthand the toll fame and controversy took on the family. He had worked closely with both Sharon and Ozzy, and had come to understand their world intimately, both its public glamour and private pain. Over time, the relationship between Piers Morgan and the Osbournes became more than professional. In conversation, Piers opened up about moments the world had never seen. "I have witnessed their transformation," he said, "from a family living under the spotlight to a family facing invisible storms from the public." Piers Morgan wasn't just conducting another interview, he was speaking to a dear friend. He had shared years of moments with the Osbourne family, standing beside them through each milestone. He had watched Ozzy transform from a commanding figure on stage to a weary soul grappling with illness. For Ozzy, Piers became the last person to have a real conversation with him, as life seemed to wind down. Piers later expressed how honored he felt to be there in that moment, knowing he was among the final few to share in the closing chapter of a legendary life. "This is an honor I will never forget," Piers said. "Ozzy is a legend, and I know we had meaningful final moments together." One of the most unforgettable things Ozzy said during that last interview was simple but powerful. "I don't complain because, if I can still move, I'm not dead." It wasn't just a quote. It was a glimpse into his lifelong philosophy. Even as illness chipped away at his strength, Ozzy fought on. He never let pain or weakness define him. Those words, humble and raw, weren't just for him, they were a message of resilience to his family, his fans, and to anyone who ever struggled. Then came another quiet but telling moment. "I'm done. I just want to go home," Ozzy said, slowly, emotion thick in his voice. On the surface, it might seem like a statement about fatigue, but within the context of his declining health, it was something more. It was a farewell. Ozzy, who had once roared on stages around the world, now longed for peace. He didn't ask for a miracle or hope for recovery. He simply wanted to return to the place where he could rest among those who loved him. It was clear he knew time was running out. Though he never stopped fighting, Ozzy also understood that this was a battle he could not win. Sharon Osbourne, his devoted wife, opened up about what those final years were like. They weren't just about hospitals or symptoms, they were about facing the truth of letting go. "Our family has changed," she said, "but we've stayed together every day for the last 5 years." Her words carried the weight of love and loss, of watching someone slowly fade but never surrender. Jack and Kelly, Ozzy's children, also spoke about the emotional toll. Jack recalled how the light in Ozzy's eyes gradually faded, yet, even when his body gave out, his spirit didn't. "My dad always remained strong," Jack said. "Even though he couldn't walk, he was still the head of the family, the one we all looked up to." Kelly, too, shared how she sensed the change in her father but never turned away. She stood by him, fiercely present, even in his most vulnerable moments. Ozzy's words and actions in those final days told the truth of his condition. Once a powerhouse of raw energy and rebellion, he now faced the undeniable limits of the human body. But the most incredible thing? He never once complained. He met his fate with calm, quiet acceptance. "We never wanted Ozzy to suffer like that," Sharon confessed. "But the important thing is he never felt alone. The family was always there, always surrounding him with love." Ozzy Osbourne's journey wasn't just one of illness or celebrity. It was a story of grit, grace, and the unshakable bonds of family. Though age and sickness dimmed his fire, he never stopped being a legend in the hearts of his fans and the eyes of his loved ones. His story leaves behind more than memories. It leaves lessons about life, courage, and love. Ozzy wasn't just a rock god. He was a husband, a father, a grandfather, a symbol for a generation that lived and breathed rock and roll. His passing wasn't just the end of a career. It marked the end of a seismic chapter in music history. Yet, despite his absence, Ozzy's legacy continues. Through his songs, his family, and those who knew him best, his spirit lives on. Sharon, Jack, and Kelly now carry the torch. Sharon, who had been beside Ozzy through the highs of fame and the lows of illness, reflected on their journey together. "Our lives changed a lot," she said, "but we always held on to love and togetherness. I never stayed silent to protect reputations." Her words showed a fierce loyalty not just to her husband, but to the family and the truth they built over decades. Sharon became the family's emotional rock. As Ozzy struggled with Parkinson's and other serious health issues, it was Sharon who helped hold them all together. She had to watch her partner fade, but never once did she waver. Her love, her strength, became a wellspring of comfort not just for Ozzy, but for Jack and Kelly as well. Jack Osbourne grew up under the shadow of a giant, but over time, he carved out his own identity. No longer Ozzy's little boy, Jack had two-faced battles of his own, including his diagnosis with multiple sclerosis, but he faced them head-on. "We lost the dad we knew," Jack said, "and in his place was a worn-out, frail man. Yet even in that pain, he held on to the beautiful memories. The love Ozzy gave remained strong and unforgettable." Kelly, too, walked a difficult road, but she learned from her parents, especially from Ozzy. "He was a better grandfather than a father," she admitted, not with bitterness, but with maturity. It wasn't criticism. It was recognition, growth, redemption. Her words spoke volumes about how far her family had come and how deeply she respected the man her father became. When Ozzy Osbourne passed away on July 22, 2025, the world lost more than a star. It lost a cornerstone of rock, but this wasn't the end. Ozzy's legacy doesn't just live in vinyl or videos. It lives in the love he gave, in the sacrifices he made, and in the strength he passed down to his family. He might no longer stand under stage lights, but in the hearts of his fans, he remains a beacon. His final conversation with Piers Morgan wasn't just about music. It was about life, its fragility, its beauty, and its end. Piers didn't just ask questions. He gave Ozzy space to reflect, to speak his truth. "I'm honored to be the last person to interview Ozzy on television," Piers said afterward. Piers wasn't just a host. He was a friend, and together, they gave the world a final glimpse into the soul of a legend. They revealed the quiet pain behind the fame, the courage behind the curtain. Ozzy's strength, his refusal to break down even at the end, reminded everyone of the fire that had always burned inside him. His death may have silenced the voice, but it couldn't erase the legacy. Not the songs like Crazy Train, Iron Man, or Paranoid. Not the grit, not the heart. Ozzy's legacy is the story of a man who loved fiercely, fought like hell, and proved that resilience runs deep in the Osbourne bloodline. Sharon, Jack, Kelly, they'll carry that forward. While one chapter of his life closed, another began, one that will be told through music, through memories, through the echo of his voice and the lives he touched. His death wasn't the end. It was a transition from man to myth, from legend to legacy. Because legends like Ozzy Osbourne don't fade. They live on. No one can erase a legend. Even when the media tried to drag them down, the Osbournes rose together. Ozzy may be gone, but his story, his fight, his family, his music will be told for generations to come. Thank you for watching this tribute to the life and legacy of Ozzy Osbourne, a music icon and devoted family man. His story, and the story of the Osbournes, will live on in the hearts of fans worldwide. If this video moved you, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss more stories about legends who shaped the world. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what Ozzy's legacy means to you.